and welcome back to another in-depth video. Today we are back in the Atlantic with Tropical Depression 9, which would be Tropical Storm Ida if it does form. And the National Hurricane Center does have this forming into a hurricane eventually. So let's get into it with the current stats. Maximum sustained winds of 35 miles an hour, minimum central pressure of 1,005 millibars, and is moving northwest at 13 miles per hour. So let's start off here with our warnings and cone. Now, this storm is expected to go over Cuba as a tropical storm. Eventually, once it gets into the Gulf, strengthen into a hurricane, potentially even Category 2 hurricane, and make landfall in Louisiana. At least that is the current forecast line from the National Hurricane Center, but anywhere in this cone could be in the cards here. And we have seen from a couple days ago this storm turning to the west and making landfall in Texas. So anywhere on the Gulf Coast, this is something you got to look at because things could change. So arrival time of winds with wind speed probabilities turned on. You can see that the highest probability of tropical storm force winds is when it intensifies into a hurricane and we get into that 80 to 90% chance. And when we're talking about on land, we're talking 70 to 80% chance in southern Louisiana. And the time frame for Louisiana is between Saturday at 8 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. for the earliest arrival time of tropical storm force winds. Most likely time here is between Saturday at 8 p.m. and Sunday at 8 p.m. So that is your time frame for the most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds. So let's move on here and go to the satellite imagery, which shows a very well developed storm for tropical depression. Would not be surprised if this gets upgraded to a tropical storm in the next few hours. So by the end of the day today, this probably would be a tropical storm. You got that rotation going, you got the thunderstorms on almost every single side of the low pressure, just a little lacking here on the southwest side, which is usually the last place to get much of the thunderstorm action. But a very well-looking storm, well-rounded. So let's move on here to current storm information, starting off here with our global and hurricane models. And this is very precise. So you have some models showing a further west track, but generally every single model has us making landfall in central to eastern Louisiana. And you don't see that type of precision almost ever. So with the GEFS, that median line goes right through central Louisiana, but some of these spaghetti strands do have it going in a wider range from Texas all the way out to Alabama. So there are some things to look at there. Those could be right. We could see a difference there. Now the GEPS has this going more of that western track around Cuba and eventually ending up in eastern Louisiana, but some of those spaghetti strands do have it all the way as far west as the Cancun area and up into the Houston area and as far east as western Alabama. So let's finish things off here with intensity guidance. So most models here, this cluster shows a tropical storm for the next 48 hours. Then it intensifies into a Category 1 hurricane. That is most models. That within probably the next 36 hours we could see this start to become a hurricane. Then after about 48 hours, that's when things go astray. We have some models show this up to Category 1. We have multiple models showing Category 2, and a couple of models showing Category 3 major hurricane. So after that, right between 84 and 96 hours, we see this sharply decline. That's probably when it will make landfall, and eventually, once it gets on shore, it will weaken so much that it goes back to a tropical depression. So let's move on here to Weather Nerds, and let's go into here. So the European ensemble shows a wide variety of tracks, but most of them are making landfall in Louisiana, some in Texas, some in Mississippi, one even in Alabama. So there is some variety there, but again, the track is pretty much down. Even though there is a chance that this goes outside of the cone designated by the National Hurricane Center, it's very unlikely. Now, that still means that there's a chance, of course, but right now, that cone is hitting it out of the ballpark. So let's move on here to the Hwrf hurricane model, and we're just going to go through this real quick with the intensity, just tracking that intensity, 992 millibars, moving through Cuba. Then the storm starts to intensify into the 970s, 960s, 940s, and it makes landfall here at 941 millibars, most likely a major hurricane at that point. You can see that there's plenty of rainfall, and the storm moves through and weakens very quickly. You can see that this has become a very broad area of low pressure, 984 millibars still, but those isobars are not as close as here. So let's take a look here at our 10-meter winds, and we're going to go out right here. You can see that that is most likely a Category 2 hurricane, possibly even Category 3 right before it makes landfall there. And then once it gets on shore, you're probably going to be seeing sustained winds of tropical storm force, unless you're right on the coastline there. Then you'll see hurricane force. But for most of the inland area, it should be tropical storm force until it gets further inland. Then the storm, again, will weaken off very quickly. Not that the storm will weaken in terms of pressure, but it will weaken in terms of winds, as it will decrease in intensity by the low pressure becoming broader. So that's just something that we do have to keep in mind. Even though this does say 978 millibars, this is a very wide and broad area of low pressure. So, what do you think is going to happen with this storm? Where do you think it is going to make landfall? Comment in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and clicking the bell. But that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.